Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Crypto Hipster Podcast. This is your host, Jamil Hassan, the Crypto Hipster, where I interview founders, entrepreneurs, executives, thought leaders, artists, you name it, amazing people all around the world of crypto and blockchain. And today I have another amazing guest. I have the CEO of the Mina Foundation. His name is Kurt Hemecker. Kurt, welcome to the show.
Hey, Jamil, thank you so much. And really pleasure to be here with you. And thank you also to your audience for being here with us as well.
Awesome. Thank you very much for joining me. And I'll kick things off. And let's ask you the first question is, what is your background and is it a logical background for what you're doing now?
That's a fantastic question. And the answer is a resounding yes. And sometimes when I'm asked this, I always like to refer to, I don't know, Jamil, if you or any of your listeners ever listened to the famous, I think it was a 2005 commencement speech that Steve Jobs gave at Stanford University, where you can kind of connect the dots going backwards. It's hard to connect them going forwards. But going backwards, I've been, without dating myself, I mean, your viewers can't see me. I do have a bit of a white beard, but I've been around from Web 0, before even web browsers, to Web 1, 2, and now 3. And without going back into where I was born in my formative years, but I studied computer science, worked doing encryption for firmware in avionics devices. That moved into financial data networks on Wall Street, and that morphed into telecommunications and payments. Shortly, a couple of the steps before I came into Mina Foundation, I was working with PayPal and doing partnerships between PayPal and mobile telecoms operators on payments. That morphed into an interest in blockchain and what was happening in blockchain technology, which is at the core a large network, the next evolution of the internet as we all know it. And after PayPal, I was one of the instrumental folks laying the groundwork for the Facebook-backed Libra, subsequently rebranded DM project based here in Switzerland, and then moved into working with Mina Foundation and Zero Knowledge. So kind of a conglomeration of computer science, hardcore firmware encryption background, coupled with good kind of business evolution of what's happened in the internet, coupled with networking technology, coupled with payments. So yeah, I think I'm pretty much in the right place at the right time, if that answers that question.
Oh, it does. You're one of the few who are. So it's pretty cool. So Mina Foundation, right? What's it all about? And how were you able to become the first blockchain to unlock ZK apps?
So that's also a really interesting story. The birth of the protocol itself initially was something called Coda, and subsequently was renamed Mina. But it was founded by two gentlemen, Evan Shapiro, who's currently the chief product and strategy officer for Mina Foundation, and a colleague of his named Izzy Meckler. And they created a company called O of One Labs that incubated the Mina protocol. And kind of their eureka moment was, wow, blockchains, certainly Bitcoin, Ethereum, the initial blockchain technology as it was being launched, the state of the blockchain was just that the size of the blockchains just grows increasingly large as time goes by. And then if you want to participate and contribute as in the security and benefit from the security of those blockchains, you have to set up computers that participate in those blockchains, and they need to re-execute every single transaction. And as time goes by, that just becomes a lot of computing power. And at the same time, both of these guys are super bright individuals. I don't know the exact subject, but Izzy was basically doing applied mathematics PhD in Berkeley, which is the ground zero of zero knowledge mathematics from, started in 1980s with Shafi Goldwasser. And then Evan had known Izzy since they were younger, and Evan himself did master's at Carnegie Mellon Institute, which again is like one of the top schools for computer science. And they said, wow, we can use zero knowledge to encapsulate and consolidate the entire state of the blockchain in one single tiny proof. So that was like a fundamental breakthrough when they created Mina, was being able to have the state of the entire blockchain in one small size proof. And they did more than that, Jamil and the listeners here. What they did in addition, they implemented infinite recursion so that no matter how much time goes on, they could take a zero knowledge proof of the consensus state of each between each block and keep that in the same constant size. So that was a massive breakthrough, and just putting that into the context of the evolution of blockchain, right? When Bitcoin white paper was published, October 31st, 2008. Certainly there were some limitations with Bitcoin in terms of everything was transparent, so there were some privacy issues and very limited at the time programmability. Then comes Ethereum, right? Massive step forward with smart contracts. However, quickly found out there's a lot of congestion, cost, scalability issues. At the same time, shortly after, you had Zcash coming out, which showed that you could use ZK snarks, zero knowledge, succinctive, non-interactive arguments of knowledge proofs for payments. But Zcash had limited programmability, but it did show that there was a big potential for ZK in blockchain. And it was actually just after that we started seeing layer twos coming out to address the congestion, the cost issues with Ethereum. So we had optimistic rollup. ZK was primarily used for scalability. And then in 2021 was this big breakthrough of Mina, which is a massive breakthrough, again, like I mentioned, in being able to use zero knowledge proof with infinite recursion for the state of the blockchain. And now here we are 3 years later, where in addition to using it for the state of the blockchain, being able to program using that type of zero knowledge proofs for any kind of data that you want to provide selective disclosure or privacy. I'll pause there for a second. There might be a couple of other questions buried in there. I know that was pretty long-winded, but that's sort of the evolution of the Mina protocol. To answer the question though about Mina Foundation, our job, so Mina protocol, it's an open source blockchain protocol based on native, it's a layer one native zero knowledge blockchain. Purpose of the foundation is to help promote the use of this open source protocol, help get a vibrant developer community, and help this technology find its use and product market fit in the wider world. And that's through issuing grants, providing education, and those kinds of activities.
I had a couple small follow-ups. First of all, let me see if I understand this correctly. You were Coda before, now you're Mina.
Exactly. And that change happened in before the launch of the mainnet of the Mina mainnet. That happened in 2021.
That's why I hadn't heard about Coda in a while. Okay, that makes sense. All right. The other one is, I didn't know this. ZKs were implemented with Zcash initially and not Ethereum?
Yeah. Zcash, as far as I know, according to the history books that I've read, Zcash was the first blockchain to implement some kind of zero knowledge technology, and they created a sort of a privacy layer at the network layer for payments, and so and then ZK rollups were implemented as part of some of the layer two solutions for Ethereum, but again, they weren't really focused on programmability. It was really more just bundling transactions, validating them much quicker, and uh, 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 more efficiently than can be done directly on Ethereum, but then still settling back to Ethereum. So still relying on Ethereum, but with no like additional programmability on top of that.
So my next question was going to be, what's ZK anyway, and what has been used for to date? And you're saying it's been used for roll-ups and bundling.
Yeah, predominantly, again, it like everyone found out about ZK in terms of its usage and deployment in Ethereum, which is outside of Bitcoin, obviously one of the largest markets for blockchain and cryptocurrency applications. But there's so much more that can be done with zero knowledge, and it's a very rich space, and there's a lot of activity now in different vectors. And ZK is now it's really, I think, the technology that's going to help bring blockchain applications to mainstream users and enterprises. It's here to stay. It's a fundamental shift forward in blockchain computer science.
So let's look forward. I went to Consensus this past year for the first time, which was pretty cool. It was in Austin. I think next year it's in Toronto. I might go. But there was a lot of buzz about ZKs being the next $1 trillion opportunity. So looking forward, what are some of the more exciting use cases of ZK? What will they be, and why is it going to bring people forward into the next millennia?
God, so I can talk about that for a couple of hours, but I'll, at the very high level, just think of so first of all, just in terms of blockchain itself, right? Like, why is blockchain important? Of course, it's an important aspect for the future. How do we move into a world where there's less trust in centralized organizations? How do we bring that into the wider world? And then how do we secure data around that? And that's kind of Web3 in general. But now, as soon as we start talking about zero knowledge, you start thinking, um, how do we deal with ensuring the integrity of computation that's been done? How do we deal with the requirements on, the one stream? On the one extreme is like anonymity. On the other hand, extreme, you have regulators that want to be able to collect data, and you have to find a middle ground. And ZK can help with that. But if you think about any industry, financial data, health data, um, news, media, scientific data, telemetry, supply chains, and you want to add a layer of selective disclosure. So that's really how we talk about privacy, because privacy is not about being anonymous. It's about deciding what you want to share, who you want to share it with. And a lot of the common use cases you hear around ZK, like anyone you talk about ZK, will talk about ZK, KYC, ZK, AML. For me, that's like a no-brainer. That's going to be an area where ZK takes off, certainly within finance and bridging kind of web traditional finance with DeFi, where you can create a zero knowledge proof of somebody's KYC and AML information. And the beauty of that is zero knowledge means that data itself, just it's not there, it's not shared. Just the validity of the statement is then shared. So you could have a zero knowledge proof attesting that you, Jamil, or somebody has passed KYC, and the funds they've added into their crypto wallet are coming from a clean source. So the DeFi protocol doesn't have to capture any information about you, but it can just rely on the fact that there's a zero knowledge proof that this KYC, that there has been KYC that is still valid. And again, with a blockchain, right, that's a temporal aspect, that it's been captured and attested to at a certain moment in time. So that's certainly one promising area around the convergence of identity and traditional finance and DeFi. And then there's so many other areas too. If you think about like the Internet of Things is another area. And if you think about all of the connected devices that are there, and especially with AI now coming into that, and that's it. At Mina, we talk very much of the Internet of true things, and we think we're on this new era. And right now, today, AI is predominantly a very nice, friendly chatbot on your browser. But AI is going to be moving, what I say is it's moving into the edge, which means it's moving into devices. So anywhere data about us can be captured from your glasses, from your smartphone, from your smart refrigerator, right? Like there's going to be data that's being captured. And so we're going to want to have more control over what data is being shared and who it's being shared with. Just even think about like pacemakers, right? Like there's medical data, hardcore biometric data about individuals that are being transmitted right now over Wi-Fi and Internet of Devices, whether it's, whether you're talking about IoT in a home, IoT in medical devices, in supply chain, in energy management, transport. So adding this layer of zero knowledge where you can attest to the sanctity of that data without actually having to share that data provides an additional layer of security over it. And I think so. There's definitely applications like I mentioned before around ZKKYC identity, specific cases of how that can be done on Mina, as well as you can prove that you're eligible to participate in a permission pool on a DEX using identity and KYC information that you've provided on other applications. But there's other areas where I think fundamentally what's being developed, and particularly with Mina, which is like you can think of it like a zero knowledge processor. So it's anything relying or wanting to use ZK can be programmed on top of Mina and take advantage of its infinite recursion. And in this one tiny state proof, you have all these proofs combined. And that allows proofs, like I just mentioned, you could have using a proof from an application you use to create a proof of your identity, then being provided into a DeFi protocol. And then you could have proofs of the transactions that you've conducted there. And these can be bundled in and reused. So this creates like an open composable database of attestations that allow data sharing in sort of a new paradigm that we haven't seen before. And this might sound odd, but like I'm excited about the applications that we don't know about yet that can be developed. And I think there's going to be a whole world of discovery here, and we want developers playing with this and getting really creative. Of course, having some of these key applications around voting, around identity, around healthcare, like all these things are important. But I think there's a whole world of applications that we don't even know are going to be invented yet and built on top of this technology. I'll pause there, Jamil. I can go on even more, but I'll just pause there in case there's a follow-up question in there.
I got a bunch of them. I got about half a dozen follow-ups now. So, let's go down the medical device route first. How do you think, the ZKs can help pharma? A lot of pharma startups, and a lot of them doing clinical trials and research, right, to find out information. But how do you think they can help them with the advancement of that clinical research trials into the development of medical devices? How will it help be able to streamline that or make it faster?
Yeah. So the interesting thing is, all these things I'm talking about, these aren't just ideas. These are things that are actually happening now on Mina. And there's one project which came through one of our incubator programs. It's called BioSnokes. And they're using zero knowledge proofs to allow other entities. So let's say you're a pharmaceutical company or a biomedical company, and you've come up with this certain proprietary cocktail or molecular formula, and you don't want to give away the particular recipe of that formula, but you want to let other people benefit by experimenting against it and inputting data and getting output. Well, you can use zero knowledge to verify that a set of input has been run against this formula without giving away the formula, and so you got the input and then you get the verified output. So this could greatly accelerate research and development and collaboration between pharmaceutical companies for pharmaceutical development, and yet letting people protect their holy grail of intellectual property and intellectual data. And that's super exciting. And the same thing, it's really interesting because that's applied in this particular case with this BioSnarks project applied to pharmaceutical research, but you can apply that to large language models, to machine learning, the same kind of thing.
Great. I think it's wonderful. So that's good. Next one I want to talk about, follow up is AI. And you mentioned Chat GPT, and a lot of people think Chat GPT is AI, but it's not really, because you have fairly trained, you have what's it called? Federated learning. You have a lot of, you have manufacturing chips. You have lots of different areas of AI that people don't see and don't understand and don't know, right? How can CK be a bridge to education and understanding and help people to develop AI, not just be a user of ChatGPT, but develop AI models for their businesses and their lives going forward?
So yeah, that's a pretty deep one. And as you know, and probably most of your listeners know, a large part of AI depends on training sets and data training sets. And I think you could use ZK to provide, again, levels of data protection over those data training sets so that you can extract things that are valid without having to share sensitive personal data, whether you're talking about, for example, a big area is genetics data or vehicle, also vehicle training data, right? Like if you a lot of the data, for example, at companies like Tesla and these self-driving models are collecting, right? It needs tons of data, but you don't want to have to share maybe your own personal trajectory information, and you can widen that to even not just AI, but insurance companies as well too. Like how much data you actually want to share about all of your activities, and if that can be done in a way where you're not personally identifiable, that's the power that zero knowledge can help around AI data sets, ensuring that something has been run against a particular AI model without giving away the proprietary coefficients of that AI model, much like the pharmaceutical example that I just gave. And
Uh,
another like fun thing I like to think about, right, is I mean, if you think about AI as really in general AI, it's living software, right? It's software that develops itself. And what will this thing become conscious at some point? Who knows? But here's another interesting thing to think about. And actually, I confess, this was not my own thought, but it was something that I don't know, love him or hate him. Some people listen to Raoul Pal. I listen to him from time to time, and he had this thing about AI, which I thought was pretty interesting. But that is, at least today, AI can't open a bank account, right? Like you have to go through KYC and AML and be a person. Like an AI couldn't go and open a bank account. So what is AI going to transact in? It's going to transact probably initially using blockchain and cryptocurrencies. So I think that's kind of bullish in general for the growth of blockchain in general and cryptocurrency in general across with AI.
I'm excited about it. I do want to ask you this because there is concern now here. I know you're in Switzerland, right?
Yes.
There's concern here in the U.S. because we had an assassination attempt on former President Trump yesterday. Joe Biden says he's going to be he dropped out of the not running again for president, and it looks like Kamala Harris is trying to get that spot. We had an election 4 years ago, and Joe Biden received 81 million votes. Some people are concerned that that wasn't a real number, that there were that was an inflated number and there was election tamperance. I'm not going to say that there was or wasn't, but I'm going to say, how can ZK help with the election process, or can it help with the election process for this year, and what steps could be taken if we were able to implement ZK in that election process?
Yeah, that's a great question and something really dear to my heart. Uh, and I should have mentioned this more when we're talking about applications for ZK, but voting is a massive one. And again, it really just comes down to sort of policymakers. Can policy and the organizers be brought together with the technology and get it out into the hands of folks? I don't know if that can be done in time for this election, but the technology is there, and uh, ZK can help with a couple aspects of that. And in fact, there are voting applications that exist now on top that are built on top of Mina. One of the better known ones is this company called Punkpol, which is actually a South Korean startup. And they've done government elections in South Korea using this technology, which I'll talk about more in a minute. And then they also do just fun polls as well too. But what ZK does is combining the power of ZK and what I mentioned before around ZK KYC for identity. It ensures it does two things. One, for the organizers of vote, it ensures that you have valid individuals voting, so they've gone through KYC. And then in addition, what Punkpol does is they combine it not just with KYC, but with social graph information, so that you know that this is not just somebody who's been KYC, but somebody like it's a valid individual within the community. And I'll talk about in a second why that's also super important. Then so the organizers of the vote know, okay, I've got eligible voters. Because they've been gone through the ZK approach, I know there's not going to be Sybil attacks with, one entity creating multiple fictitious accounts. But so I've got this technological confirmation that these are valid, eligible voters. And then on the voter side, because ZK is used, they know that my data, the way you voted, is being kept private. So like, I'm not going to be called out if I voted for something that might not be popular, or that I wouldn't want other people to know the way I voted. So it's really kept, my data, the way I voted, is kept secret, and only the results of that vote then are known to the actual organizers. So that's really powerful, right? And that kind of thing exists today, but there's a lot of education that needs to happen for users to be confident in it, for regulators and governance to be confident. Obviously, it's got to be married with some kind of government issued identity credentials as well. Can that happen in time for this U.S. election? I doubt it, and it's already contentious enough. But I would love it to happen, and I think it would. I think I'd be surprised if in 2028 that we didn't see that kind of thing already coming out in U.S. elections. And the reason the social graph thing is important, I've spoken to a couple of video like identity providers in the industry, and in some cases, people will sell their KYC for money, just much like people sell organs, right? You go to another country, you need 80 grand, you sell your kidney. Like, a lot less invasive to sell your passport for somebody who wants to use it for something. But that's why, like, the social graph element, in addition to the actual KYC, actually helps triangulate that that kind of thing is not happening.
So I want to talk about I guess, social graph, the benefits of it being able to identify, social graphs and build your own social graph. What do you see? How do you see the role there?
So, social graphs are kind of things that get built over time, right? So there's always a confidence sort of ranking that has to go with the social graph. And the more length of time as time goes on or somebody's involved in a community. So it's always kind of on a gradient sort of scale. And then I guess a confidence factor associated with that. But again, combining that with actual credentials from validated credentials somewhere starts creating a very strong proof point. But again, with being able to protect the actual data itself and just providing, because at the end of the day, zero knowledge is an attestation that a statement is true, but the actual details that went into attesting that statement are not shared. That's the power of, that's why it's called zero knowledge, because the knowledge is not shared, just the attestation that it's true. That's what's been shared.
All right. And for more people to develop with ZK, what's possible for people to be able to developers to come on board? How do you bring them on board? Because it sounds like there's a heck of a lot more that can be done that's being done already. So how do you attract those developers so we can build that future?
That's kind of the holy grail and the thing that we're working on very actively now. And we do that in a number of ways. One way is just the technology itself. And Mina in particular, we've developed the scripting and the development language used for that is something called TypeScript, which is one of the most commonly used Web 2 development languages based on JavaScript. So that just creates one less sort of hurdle, right? People can use a language environment that they're already used to using to develop these zero knowledge applications. They don't have to worry about the underlying complexity of the zero knowledge math or computations itself. And then, so that's one part, just making technology really easy and intuitive. And then the second part is, again, what the foundation is deeply involved in, and that is providing education about how to write, providing reference programs, how to write these kinds of applications, as well as grants and subventions to developers and businesses that want to create businesses or new businesses on top of that. And we have a couple of different grant programs, one called Navigators, which lets people get their feet wet, just experimenting with some of the code. We have another program called ZK Ignite, which is really meant for more professional builders that actually want to create and build a business. And we also then link them with incubators and venture capital companies that are looking to invest in the space and bring these things out to market. And then there's another area of grants we call core grants, and those are RFP based for companies that want to help develop and add capabilities on top of Mina protocol itself.
Sounds super exciting to me. It sounds really, really good. Wow. I might be in touch with you at a later date about one of those three. So I want to thank you very much for speaking with me today. I really enjoyed speaking with you. I got to bring you back in a half a year or so, see how get an update, see how everything's going. So I enjoyed this conversation. I enjoyed talking to you. I have one last question. How can people find out more information about you, about Mina Foundation? How can they do that?
Yeah, if you're a developer, I'd suggest just going to docs.minaprotocol.com. A great way, and then also there you can find the community, join the Discord channel. You can follow us on Twitter and that's the Twitter handle is @Mina Protocol. And then also myself, I always love getting a few more Twitter followers at KHEM, that's KHEM. So, and thank you, Jamil. It was a pleasure to be here. It's kind of short. I hope my responses were concise and understandable enough, but always happy to take any follow-up questions from you or listeners at a later stage.
Awesome. Thank you very much for your time today.
Thank you.